everyone, and welcome to our next video series of Part 9, Modeling Our Character Sven in Maya. And we're going to focus on the torso and the arms. And I have a nice guest speaker with us, Craig Barr, a technical specialist in Autodesk, who focuses on our entertainment creation suites. Hi, Craig.
Hey, Chris.
So what we're going to focus on, and I want to bring everybody's attention back to our blog because I reference a link from 3D World where we talk about creating the best character models for games. It's an article by Anthony Ward, and we're going to actually be referencing him quite a bit in our videos and as reference. And he does 18 tips for building low poly models efficiently. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on 3 of them. And number 1, we're going to focus on starting simple. And here we're starting just with a simple cylinder. And you can see as I'm going through this and the video is sped up that starting simple allows me to get my shape quicker. So Craig, what kind of things would you like to tell our students and people watching this video about starting simple?
Sure. So when you're starting with poly modeling, you have several options. And what you're doing here, Chris, with starting simple with either a default shape, for in this example here, something cylindrical, that's a great start. Really, I think the best piece of advice is go with what you're comfortable with. I definitely recommend for students that are new to polygonal modeling to explore and play with the different approaches. What you're demonstrating here with this, starting with a cylindrical shape and then working with the edges and the vertices to shape in your overall torso shape works fantastically well. It's a great way to start to rough in the overall base mesh shape.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've really learned also is keeping topology clean. And, as a good conversation point, let's talk about what that means to the students. That means keeping not only, good space between the each of my edge loops there, but keeping them consistent, right? And, the Move Edge tool in Maya is very powerful because it keeps your topology as you're working through.
Definitely. It's all about edge flow. The key there is you don't have to be specific as if you're measuring the area on each polygon to have everything line up completely 100% uniform, but you do want a good flow of those edges, the spacing between them horizontally and vertically, because there are many reasons for that. If you're going to subdivide this mesh for sculpting, you definitely want something that's going to subdivide uniformly. If you have an area where there's dense edges and an area where there are big gaps, you're going to get a real difference in that subdivision. And when it comes to detailing in a package that subdivides up high poly resolutions for sculpting, you're going to have a problem there. You're going to get different resolutions of geometry. And it also comes down to texture placement and texture coordinates. A nice, clean topology laid out mesh will bring textures across the surface much more cleanly and evenly as well. And then, of course, there's the deformation side. Clean geometry will deform better as well if you have proper, clean edge flow.
Yeah, and also you'll notice we start talking about following natural muscle lines, that as I was doing the arm, it comes right flow into the chest, right? And so I'm even thinking ahead to how this might be animated, right? And part of that is knowing where your model's going to go and understanding, because, games is not a one-person job, right? Because this model has to be passed on. In fact, the same follows the same line in film and TV.
Exactly. It's just a good principles to follow. Like we talked about before here offline, Chris, I mentioned that, in animation, it doesn't matter what tools you're using. There are principles that need to be adhered to and followed. And if those principles are followed, good, clean results will come about. It's the same thing with modeling. Following some basic principles, keeping your mesh clean, and then following anatomical structure, like what you're doing there with following, musculature of the character, anatomical lines that lend to proper deformation of that character. If these things are followed, you will have a good, clean mesh that fits through any pipeline, whether it's a game or a feature film. And that's why I'd recommend students definitely work with, spend the time learning to model, but spend the time to learn to model properly, making a good, clean mesh. different categories there as well. Things that lend to down a pipeline that can deform properly, can texture properly, and ultimately will end in a good quality animation for a game or a film or whatever it may be.
It's all about practice.
All about practice, absolutely. Practice and learning. Poly modeling is not one of those things that you pick up overnight. It's something that it's continual learning. I mean, we're always throwing in, especially you and I here with Autodesk, as you know, we're always researching and developing new tools, but that doesn't change the path, right? It doesn't change the path of the following and adhering to basic good principles of modeling, right? So.
Yep. So, Craig, we appreciate you joining us for this call. In the next video, we're going to look at modeling the legs and the boots, and we look forward to the next video. Thank you, everybody.